Behavioral approaches for managing the stall-fed goats. Under today's webinar's topic, we will cover following contents, that is stall-fed goat production system. What is significance of behavior under stall-fed system? And what are the major behavioral challenges under the stall-fed goat rearing? And how to proceed with the selection of stock animal or breeding animals considering their behavior, and what kind of housing we should provide to ensure the naturalness which they enjoy in the extensive system, and how to manage the goats particularly during their critical stages like periparturate period and during the neonatal stages, that we will discuss. Then we'll discuss how to control the behavioral problems at feeder, because feeding is very important in stall fed. And next will be regulating the reproductive behavior of the animals, understanding the reproductive behavior of the animals under stall fed, and what should be the ideal social structure or groups of the animal under stall fed, and how to improve the stockmanship skill of the farmer or owner of a stall-fed goat farm in order to improve the overall welfare of goats. And finally, we'll conclude with the focus on some future perspective also. So that will be the outline of a discussion. So we will start with how this goat production system is changing over the period. Throughout the country, you may see such change that it is shifting from extensive system to intensive system, or low input, low output system to high input, high output system, from unorganized or subsistence level to organized or business model. So gradually shift is happening towards this direction, that is towards the stall-fed farming. And as we are moving towards the stall-fed system, there are many challenges in the stall-fed system if you compare it with the extensive system, particularly with respect to freedom of the animal regarding access to various resources, say feed, water, or space, or the social companionship. So there is more freedom in the extensive system in comparison to stall-fed. Likewise, if you see the natural instinct of the animals, natural behavior of the animal, say exploration, inquisitiveness, browsing of the animal, so those are again restricted in the stall-fed, but it is freely accessible to the goats in the extensive. But if we talk about the unfavorable natural condition, say vagaries of the weather, or shortage of pasture availability, or say disease outbreaks when pathogens are in the nature. So under those conditions, stall-fed may have little advantage over the extensive system. But if we see overall scenario under the stall-fed system, there are so many stressors or challenges, behavioral challenges for the goats, which we have to overcome. So why behavior is important? If you see the statement of American actor and philosopher Will Rogers, which is very familiar, this statement is very familiar, this quote regarding veterinarian, that best doctor in the world is veterinarian. Why? Because his or her patient cannot tell what is the problem, but the doctor himself has to come to know. How doctor has to come to know? By examining the behavior of the animal, or say clinical parameters. So behavior is very crucial here, because patient cannot tell, animal cannot speak, goat cannot speak about the problem. So we have to find out the problem. So here the stockmanship of the owner or the veterinarian's observation is very important. That's why we have to understand the behavior of goats, particularly under the stall-fed. Now, when we are talking about behavior, actually what is behavior? Behavior is just response to any stimuli, which may be man-made stimuli or which may be any natural stimuli. So response of animal towards any stimuli is behavior. And it is considered to be one of the basic part of one of the 5 basic freedoms described by the Bramble Committee of UK. The 5 basic freedoms defined by the Bramble Committee, which is widely accepted as 5 basic freedoms, or which covers also the 3 components of animal welfare, that is the naturalness or natural behavior of the animal. So it is important to understand what is the natural behavior of goat under stall fed and how it is comparable or simulating the behavior of goat in the extensive. So it is important for that perspective to read about the behavior, to know about the behavior. And under stall fed, it become more important because the owner has to play multifarious role. Owner has to play the role of a dam for the kids. Owner has to play the role of an observer or say attendant for pregnant goats. Owner has to play the role of say health expert by early detection of diseases or say other health issues, or owner who has also to play the role of manager to supply all the inputs on time, say feed, water, etc. So the stockmanship depends upon the understanding of behavior of the animal. And unfortunately, goat cannot have that much facial expression as human beings. So we have to find out the cues or say body language of the animal, and we have to make interpretation like what goats are actually lacking or what goats actually need under the controlled condition in which we are rearing the animals. So for that purpose, we need to know what goats actually like naturally when they are in the extensive system. So if you see the basic behavior of goat, they are highly inquisitive animal, have a strong exploratory nature. So that is one perspective. Then they are a good climber. Most of the goats which are distributed throughout the globe in various agroclimatic region, various geographical areas from very cold to deserts, they are usually good climber. Then they also have good browsing instinct along with grazing. Then they prefer the selective feeding. You will see under the wild that they don't eat continuously on at one site or at one plant. They keep on switching from one plant to another or to next. So they are very selective in feeding. And that's why we say that goat's milk or product of goat has so many advantages, because they can consume wide variety of plants, including herbs, beneficial herbs. And they also like dry condition, dry surroundings. That is very important. That's why that could be the reason Rajasthan is having very large population, Rajasthan and Gujarat, of goats, and of course Africa also have a large population of goats naturally. Though scenario is changing because of human intervention, it is now being adopted by other areas also, but they naturally like dry surroundings. They don't like to be wet. They hate actually rain, and they also hate the high humidity of winter. So they like the dry conditions. And for that, we have to enrich their environment under the stall fed condition. We should provide them through the physical enrichment, social enrichment, and nutritional enrichment that we will discuss in our coming discussion. So along with this natural likeliness, we should also know that how goats spend their time most of the time. If we see the activity budget of the goat throughout the 24 hours, how goats are spending time in different activities, that is the ethogram. We should know about the ethogram of goats, that they spend significant amount of time on feeding. Around 50 to 60% of total time they spend on feeding under the natural condition, followed by resting behavior, and then standing and moving, say around 2 hours per day. And to other activities, they spend very less time. But still, despite this less time which they spend on, say, social behavior, this exhibit, or exploratory behavior which they exhibit, that is very crucial, having big impact on the stress level of the animals under stall fed. And how we can ensure that goats spend a lot of time in feeding. You can imagine 50 to 60% of time means around 12 hours, 12 to 14 hours in feeding. So under stall fed, we cannot engage goats so long for feeding. So how to engage them in the stall fed? That is one of the big challenge that we have to overcome. Along with the, say, after knowing about the basic need of the goats under stall fed, what are the major challenges, behavioral challenges, that we will also briefly see, and then we will see how to overcome these challenges. So one of the major challenge under the stall fed is say zero grazing option, or say very limited browsing or no browsing option. That is particularly true about this zero grazing system. So goats will have monotonous life, boredom, and that will lead to development of vices or say high stress level. So and moreover, uh, residual feeding is very common in the goats under the stall fed. Balanced feeding is very rare, and that may leads to malnutrition, and goats may develop vices or say deficiency symptoms. And another major issue in stall fed is goats are kept at high density because space or land availability is challenge for most of the farmers, and they try to get more advantage with available land. So they keep more animals all together, and it's very common scene that without having say different pens or partitions, they keep large number of animal in a single pen or single shed. So that may leads to keeping animal at high stocking density, and where the pathogenic load or microbial load in the soil or in the surrounding will be very high, and such animals are more prone for the outbreak of diseases. And such high stocking density also leads to unstable social hierarchy. So under unstable social hierarchy, again animal will be continuously disturbed, there will be high aggression level, and there will be uneven feeding opportunities. Those animals which are low in social ranking, they will have poor access of feed, and you will see few goats will always be there in farm which are not performing well. That is mainly because of say uneven opportunity in the feeders, at the feeders. Then coming to other challenges, that is the residual feeding. The whatever leftover is usually given to the goats, or whatever we give that is not given with right way, right approach. You see it's here in this right picture, that feed is given on the ground, so that do not satisfy the natural behavior of the goat. And many times it is common that goats are kept in heterogeneous group. Heterogeneous means based on the say age or sex or say body weight or body condition score. So all the animals are grouped together, and that leads to more instability among the animals. And those animals with low immunity, say advanced pregnant animals or neonates, they are under challenge of say diseases. And moreover, frequent mixing is also common in the stall fed, where continuously animals are sold or purchased. That may also lead to disturbed social hierarchy in the stall fed. Then another few challenges which we see include poor design of the feeder or waterer, that leads to uneven access of feed resources or more feed wastage, or many times they are exposed to the environmental fluctuations. They are not given due care from extreme cold or extreme hot conditions. And moreover, there is also sometimes frequent change in ownership that may lead to change in the feeding, housing. That is very common, that animals are brought from one farm to another farm, they are sold, but without knowing about their feeding, past feeding history, they are exposed to some new feeding regimen, and that again puts stress on the animal, and animal do not acclimatize with the new condition, and they become the uh, poor performing animal. That is quite common. Then another challenge is early breeding. That is very common, not only in stall fed but also in extensive. That the once these doe or doelings they just attain the puberty, they are bred by the bucks, because bucks are many times kept free in the flock, and they breed the females which just attain the puberty without having the optimum body weight or body condition score. They are bred, and that leads to poor performance, poor future performance of such does. And many times peri-parturient care is also not given due consideration. So these are the major challenges in the stall fed. Now, how to overcome these challenges? So it starts with selection of good breeding stock, because if you select good breeding stock, you will have better performance of your future flock. So it starts generally, traditionally, we look for the quantitative traits or some qualitative traits for selection of the breeding animals. Say based on the morphology, we usually select the tall animal, say active animal and all. But here I have specifically shown this picture of buck having conjoined scrotum and split scrotum, because it was very common. I have personally observed in many competitions that such split scrotum bucks were rejected with the concept that they are inferior. It is quite popular in Pakistan also, and it is documented by FAO also. In FAO's document also, I have seen that bucks with the split scrotum, they are considered inferior. However, recent studies, including one carried out at our institute also, we found that split scrotum bucks are having better semen quality, and they are better adapted. They are better adapted. Sorry, am I audible?
Yes, sir, clear.
Okay. And they are better adapted for hot conditions or hot climate, because it increases the surface area of the scrotum, and there will be more cooling of the testicles. And even anatomical difference, if you see, there is more number of seminiferous tubules per square inch of the scrotum, so of the testicle. So now it has been considered that split scrotal bucks are better adapted, and even semen volume obtained is more than the conjoined scrotal buck. So that we have to consider. And of course, abnormalities like monorchism or gynecomastia, etc., should be avoided. Along with this quantitative traits, behavioral trait of bucks which should be given due consideration include their activeness, their vigor, their short reaction time, their short refractory period, multiple ejaculations. If given opportunity, the bucks can ejaculate say 4 to 5 times consecutively. It has been reported in black Bengal buck that up to 5 ejaculations can be obtained. This is particularly important when you see seasonal breeding behavior in goats. When during the rainy season, so many goats are coming into heat simultaneously. So if you have shortage of bucks, then such bucks will be more useful, which can give you multiple ejaculations, and those bucks which can be easily trained. So these behavioral traits should also be given due consideration, because we have seen sometimes when we house the bucks in groups, they have it's quite common in group housed bucks to have homosexuality. They frequently mount over each other, and the mounting is important determinant of social hierarchy of bucks. So dominant bucks will mount over the submissive bucks. That is quite common. And in this process, some bucks even become infertile. It is well documented, even available in the textbooks, that some of the bucks in group housing system become infertile, and they become shy breeder, even don't mount over the females. So that we should definitely look while purchasing the breeding stock, particularly the bucks. Okay, so that is all about the selection of breeding bucks. Now coming to the selection of breeding does, just like bucks, we give here advantage to the quantitative and qualitative traits, like say udder morphometry. In addition to pure breed characteristics, we look at the udder morphometry, particularly for dairy goats, and of course for meat goat also. Milk yield is important for survival of the kids in case of multiple births. So the udder traits are important for consideration. So various udder dimensions, say udder depth, udder circumference, udder width, teat length, distance between teats, height of teat from ground. So these all are important consideration for selecting the goats or does. Along with that, we should also look the behavior of goats in with respect to their docile nature, docile but active. They should be active, and explicit heat signs. You in stall fed condition, you will see many a times, particularly I'm talking about beetle goat, heat is not that much explicit, or visual signs are not that much prominent. So many a times we have to go for buck parading for heat detection. So explicit heat sign, like say clear cut cervical discharge, that is not common. If you see, that is good. So here I've shown some of the best animals. Even you can see right corner, this animal looks very weak, but it was the champion animal which has given 5 liters of milk uh, in 24 hours, okay, in the national championship. And it is, you can see, has become weak towards the end of the early lactation. So such history should be also looked upon while selecting the animals. And one more thing which I told you, that early breeding is very common in the natural condition, or sometimes under stall fed also. So that should be controlled under stall fed, that the threshold body weight for each breed, though such documents are not available, like what should be the minimum body weight for breeding a doeling. So we have found in our farm at Gadwasu that 28 kilogram body weight for beetle breed is optimum for first breeding. Before that, does should not be bred, because such does will have poor stature. They will not have proper growth, and even the kids survival will be questionable, or the performance will be questionable. So optimum body weight for first breeding should also be important consideration. Then maternal instincts are important for survival of young ones. So if you have such information, that will also be beneficial, like uh, uh, like the litter size at the time of weaning, that is indicator of maternal instinct. Those females, those which are having strong maternal instinct, their kids will survive. So that also we should look. And in general, you will see that immediately after birth, female will approach the males, sorry, female or dam will approach the kids. That is known as the caregiving behavior. And later on, kids will approach the mother. That is care seeking behavior. So this caregiving behavior or maternal instinct is very important for the survival of the young ones. So that also should be looked upon for selecting the breeding females. So this is about the selection of the breeding stock for stall fed from the behavioral perspective. Now coming to the housing consideration, to ensure that goats naturalness or behavioral needs are met out. So under stall fed, you know that so many designs of goat shed are available on internet, or say on different sources, but which design is suitable for which area, that is actually a topic of research. But unfortunately, very few research is available on housing of goats, because it takes a lot of time to research on housing. It includes a lot of cost also. That is the reason why house research on housing is very less in India, and that too in small ruminant it is rare. So there is no shed design which you can say is suitable for all the seasons. You have to make some amendments, some changes in the existing design for to meet out the say requirement of winter, or meet out the requirement of summer. Some modification you have to do. You cannot say that this design is perfect for all the 4 seasons. You have to make some changes. So there is no all weather shed design available for goats, and likewise you can say there is no shed design which is suitable for all the geographical regions of India. You have to have changes, different designs for different geographical areas. And other considerations are, say, location. Usually elevated areas are preferred for housing of the goats. And it also, again, what material to be used for floor or wall or other structures, that depends upon the scale of production. If you have a plan to go to a large scale, then you have to accordingly make more investment. Otherwise you have to start with smaller investment. Now orientation of shed, again there is no research available about the orientation of shed. We simply follow the concept of dairy cattle housing. That is, we say east-west long axis of the shed, and paddock may be north-facing. But there is no research available actually, like which orientation is better. And at Punjab particularly, with my experience, I'm saying that some farmers who have made this north-south orientation also, and they are getting good result because more sunlight is coming, and you can say goat is relatively better adapted for hot condition in comparison to dairy animal. So that could be the reason they perform well even in north-south oriented sheds. Okay, but important part in housing is you need to have more pens, more partitions, so as to have homogeneous grouping of the animals. We will discuss this in coming slides, but this is most neglected part, that in most of the stall-fed farms you will find number of partitions or number of pens are relatively less than the requirement. Then if you see the space requirement for different category of goats, Indian standards or Bureau of Indian Standards, they made the code for housing of sheep and goat in 1985, and they suggest different range of covered area for different animals, but they are silent about the open area requirement. So again, there is need to research, though we simply say open area should be double of the covered area, but Indian standards or IS specification is silent about it. So there is need of research, and moreover, we have 34 breeds of goat, say from Jamnapuri or beetle, like large breeds, to very small breeds, let's say Black Bengal or Assam hill goats, which are very small. So we cannot have same specification both breeds. So there is again need of research for space requirement of goats of different breed in different say flooring or different type of housing. So there is need of research. And sunlight is very crucial. We should make the shed in such a way that natural sunlight should come into covered area, so that there is natural disinfection. Particularly, it is important in areas where winter are more harsh. Sunlight should enter into the covered area so as to provide the natural disinfection of the covered area. And we have seen that the disease incidences, or particularly the respiratory problems and diarrhea incidences, are less when the natural sunlight is coming on the pakka floor in the covered area. And other than that, we have to think about the environment enrichment that we will discuss in coming slides. So here you can see a design of elevated platform goat shed. Though it is sound, I think well known to most of the participants, that elevated platform goat sheds are suitable for housing of goats in high rainfall areas, in the coastal areas, and in the northeastern part also, where humidity level may be higher. So, or say where winter is not a concern. But this shed was designed in Punjab. You think this particular farmer, he was Punjabi, but he worked government service in Karnataka, and at the time of retirement, he had planned to start goat farming. So he took this design from Karnataka and made this shed in Punjab. And he, at the time of construction, he visited our university also. He told that I have already made this investment of 25 lakh rupees for making this shed. And he told, now I have to go with it. I cannot amend it. So what result he got during summer, his animals performed very well. But in winter, he has to sell most of the stock. He sold most of the stock because from the slatted floor, cold wind was coming and animals were not well insulated. So he has to sell the stock in winter, and later he made minor amendments because it's a pakka structure. You cannot make much amendment. So he reduced the stock in winter and kept the animals below the platform in lesser number in winter months. So that is the one thing one should consider, that once you design the shed, you cannot make much amendments. You should be very much sure about the design before starting the farm. Then you can see this right top corner shed. Here one side of the shed is completely closed, another side is completely open. So completely closed one side is otherwise good, but in winter, as I told you, sunlight should enter into the covered area. So from that perspective, it was not giving good result, because whatever pathogen which are secreted by various root of the animals, they get accumulated on the floor, and you cannot have better disinfection, or say many times you are not doing regular disinfection. So chances of disease are more, but if natural sunlight is coming, so it will be advantageous. So you can have some option of sunlight, and you can cover it with curtains if required. So foldable curtains may be used, but there should be provision. If you completely close one side, means the sunlight will not enter into the shed. So that consideration should be given. Then you can see for kids in left bottom corner, for kids, though we say group size of 30 to 75, in different text you can find that they can be, kids can be housed in the size of 30 to 75 in number, but subgroups are required actually, particularly during the early stages, because when we keep those kids in winter months in the inside the shed, you will see that they will do huddling, they will sit over each other, and weaker kids may die because of suffocation. So subgroups should be made with homogeneous body weight and all. So that's why subgrouping is important for the kids. Then you can see in the right bottom corner, shed with one side open, and you can see the brick wall partition. Brick wall height is about 4 feet. So such sheds are also good for say if you have high investment option available, so you can go with such a shed in northern India. But thing is that here paddock is north facing, and in northern India most of the parts you will see south facing paddock usually get better sunlight, and you will see that such shed will remain more dry and diseases will be less in such sheds. Then in addition to this, the pruneable trees outside the paddock or near the border of the paddock are a good option, because in summer they will provide shade to the animals, and in winter you can prune them to get the sunlight advantage. So that option can be looked for reducing the feed cost also, and to get the advantage of thermoregulation. Then in right top corner you can see low cost shed with the simple shelter provided, but here you cannot do subgrouping or homogeneous grouping. You need so much area for rearing the animals, but otherwise you can think about low cost option. Then in left bottom corner you can see heavy investment shed made by the Punjab government itself, and uh, at that time stock position was very less. So but it is not possible for a small farmer to, or medium farmer to have this, but you can see it's a well designed shed with partially open both the sides for ventilation, and you can cover if required in winter as per the climatic condition. And in bottom right corner, this is very common for small farmers, that they usually take the goats outside for grazing, and in night they close in all the goats in one shelter. And here you will see so many respiratory problems happening in winter months, because they usually keep all the goats inside enclosed room without option of say emitting of foul gases from height. So there should be some scope of relieving the foul gases from the top of the shed. That is very important. So other than these designs, the structures, various structures which we provide are also crucial for success of any stall-fed farm. So the dimension of various structures and what material you are using, those are important for natural expression of the behavior of animals. Here you can see at a farmer's level, the different structures used, like say drainage, green sheet, the height of the hexagonal feeder for browsing, and for say concentrate feeding, or say height of the water, and the partition wire mesh jali for ventilation. So such considerations are important to ensure the natural behavior of animal, at the same time comfort of the animal. Okay, and as I told you, north facing or south facing paddocks, according to the geographical condition, you have to think about the direction of paddock and the orientation of the shed, because it have a direct implication on the performance of the flock. Then you should also think about enrichment options, say grooming option. You can see here rough surface is provided of a mat for grooming purpose, because goats like grooming. Then the personal protection of the animal, because very few studies are available in India about the hot tolerance, hot condition tolerance or cold condition tolerance of the, or say thermal tolerance of the different breeds. Only at NIANB Bangalore and in Duasu Mathura, two or three breeds have been studied for their temperature, humidity, say THI in say or say thermo comfort zone, or say their THI where they feel stress. So the THI value of 76 has been obtained for Barbary breed, whereas it was 33 or 73 or 74 for Jamnapuri. So Barbary was found to be more heat tolerant with respect to THI, temperature humidity index, where in case of say crossbred cattle we say 72 and exotic cattle we say 68 is the level of THI where the heat stress starts in the animal. So goats are relatively, you can say, more heat tolerant, and particularly Barbary breed, though we need more research on the heat tolerance ability of various breeds. And here you can see in the right bottom picture that in this maternity pen, you see maternity pen or say kidding pen, you will be more enclosed because they need protection. And here you can see height of side wall is very high, and there are windows of about 2 feet on the top from where sunlight will be coming inside the shed. And there are fans for ventilation. Here you see one fan is not working, another fan is working, and all the goats are staying below the working fan. So it is important to ensure that ventilation is provided during the hot months or during the summer months. And electrical point should not be inside the shed. So that is because we say goat can reach up to say sometimes 2 meter height, particularly the bucks, large bucks. Otherwise 1.5 meter they can easily reach. So electric point should not be there, and otherwise sometimes electrocution may happen. And we blame that goats are mischievous or notorious animal. Other than that, during the extreme hot or extreme cold condition, what amendments we have to make, as I told you, that for kid pen and for maternity pen, more enclosed type of shed are required. And here also you can see that kids are kept in the enclosed shed, but it is the period of winter morning where neonates are inside the shed and the relatively younger animals are outside to get the sunlight advantage in winter month. And in the second picture, you can see the animal's body posture of due to cold. They are trying to shrink their surface area to expose to cold condition. And here you can see the bucks, they are huddling to have less exposure to cold condition, because this is morning time, but it was cloudy. Many times in North India, you will see sunlight is not coming to the optimum for several days, and animals cannot stay inside the covered area, or outside also it is stressful, so they will do huddling. And here you can see the height of the partitioning wall between the buck shed and the female shed, because it is important if you are following the breeding plan or you want to avoid indiscriminate breeding, the height of partition wall should be approximately 6 feet for larger breeds like beetle. And below two pictures you can see here the paddocks are south facing, and you can see very good sunlight is coming. And here also goats are preferring the pakka floor in the paddock, instead of the kacha floor. So even in the open area or in paddock, pakka floor should be provided. Partially you can say around 25% or 30% of the total paddock area that should be pakka to get advantage of say sunlight in winter months or during rainy season. Also they prefer pakka floor than the kacha floor. So that consideration should be given. Then during the hot condition, you will see that ventilation as well as shade both are important, and availability of water round the clock is important because they drink more water more frequently, and you should change the water, because if you are providing water outside, then it will become hot. So you have to frequently change water, and you should also ensure that sufficient greens are added into the ration, because in summer they mostly get water requirement fulfilled by the green fodder. Now behavioral consideration for the critical stages, two critical stages I am specifically mentioning, that is the periparturient period and second is the neonatal stage. So during pregnancy, how we keep the goats under stall fed, that also reflects in terms of performance of their kids. So studies have shown, recent few studies on behavior, they have shown that the advanced pregnant goats, if they are handled in positive way or in negative way, so positive or negative handling experience will have direct implication on kids cognition level and stress coping ability. That means if you are handling the pregnant goats positively, it will improve the stress coping ability of kids and cognition level of the kids. So they will, chances of survival will also be better. So that's why stockmanship skill is important, particularly for care of the pregnant animals. And as I told you, that immediately after birth, the caregiving behavior is shown, and later on the care seeking behavior, which we call epimeletic caregiving and atepimeletic, that is care seeking behavior. So that is shown by the animals. And as far as neonates condition is concerned, newborn kids, that stage is very crucial. For first 2 to 3 weeks, their thermoregulatory mechanisms are very poor. They cannot maintain their body temperature as like adult animals. So you have to ensure that thermal insulation is provided, particularly during the cold condition. So that is important. And here you can see that the first excreta, meconium, which is adhered to the perineal region, if required, it should be removed. It is very sticky in nature, and if it is not attended, you can see in right picture, it may lead to soiling, and sometimes wound may happen, and animal survival sometimes become questionable. So this many such instances we have seen where such kids are not handled timely, particularly breed like beetle or jamnapuri, which have very long hairs on the thigh region, which we call feathers. So these hairs lead to stickiness. And it is also true, you see in this picture, it is also true, like this, for this advanced pregnant goats, we should trim these hairs or feathers so that the fetal membranes or placenta will not adhere over it. Otherwise, here also soiling may happen, and it may lead to wounds. It has been commonly noticed. So we usually trim these hairs before parturition. That is also crucial consideration. And for neonates, you have to provide good bedding material. If farmer is having resources, he can make such cages also to provide the insulation with bedding, or say resource poor farmer can make such local material with local material, such devices. Say it is commonly called tokra, which is made up of mulberry branches, to provide the thermal insulation to kids because of poor thermoelectric mechanism. So it is very important for first 2 to 3 weeks to provide such thermal insulation. Then in stall fed, if you are giving say milk by bottle or feed, you have to ensure that all are getting equal access, because the cognition level of kids is relatively low at early stages. Okay, and that's why, because their social hierarchy is also not well developed at early stages, you will see very less fighting at early growing stage in the kids because of poor cognition level, or you can say poor social hierarchy establishment. As you can see in this left corner picture, there are 3 feeders provided, but all the kids are eating at same feeder. Growing, these are growing kids, but there are 2 more feeders where feed is available, but all are eating at same one feeder only. That is clearly indicating the poor cognition level. So we have to monitor that the kids are getting uniform access of feed during early stages. Then coming to the, after considering these critical stages, the feeder is very important in stall fed, because as I told you, animals spend most of the time at feeder, or say in feeding. In natural condition, they spend half of the time, approximately half of the time at in feeding or browsing in natural condition. But in stall fed, they spend relatively less time. But this still they have lot of aggression at feeder, because as we say in human, roti, kapda, and makan. These are the 3 basic need. In case of animals, the reason for fighting or aggression is feed, space, and reproduction. So feed, space, and reproduction. So if you are keeping male and females together, then the reproduction is not a reason for fighting. And if you are providing adequate space also, then only reason for fighting is feed. And feed is available at feeder. So the design of feeder or structure of feeder is very important. And here you can see some of the faulty designs of feeder, where you can see animals are entering inside the feeder, or say the feeder, because of poor design, there is a lot of feed wastage, and even presentation of feeder is not optimal. Of feed is also not right, so that is leading to so much of feed wastage. So in addition to the design, the stockmanship skill of presenting the feed is also important, how you are presenting it. So if you are not uniformly presenting the feed, again it is leading to the clustering of the goats and more chaos among the animals, or more disturbance among the animals while feeding. You can see in the bottom picture also, feeders left side, feeders are placed with the say relatively more interfeeder distance, and animals are not disturbed. But in right corner picture, you can see in bottom picture that feeders are placed very near and leading to disturbance while feeding. So such feeders will be disturbing the animals, and they may have uneven access to feed resources, or sometimes wastage also. So these are also important to consider. And here also we have carried out this study. This hexagonal feeder or circular feeder are very common in some of the parts, or even CIRG have designed this long back, and it is commonly used by many farmers. But we found that linear feeder provides more stable feeding among the animals, whereas at the hexagonal feeder, the the comfortable feeding is limited to only dominant animals which are having horns. You can see here in this in this top right picture, the horned goats are occupying more space, and they are eating comfortably, getting more than 1 feet space at the feeder, whereas the goats which are not having horns or socially low rank, they are either waiting, standing idle, okay, or are getting disturbed more frequently. This is the common scene. Now you can see this video also. Can you see the video running?
No, sir, it is not running. You can minimize the yes, sir.
Okay, sir. So you can see here at this hexagonal feeder, these are actually not adult bucks, these are growing bucklings, you can say. And at round feeder or hexagonal feeder, you can see they are continuously moving. They are not getting comfortable feeding option, and they are continuously, you see, getting pushed by each other. Whereas if it is a linear feeder, they can have just parallel pressing. They cannot replace each other in this way. Here they are continuously moving, just like you can say musical chair. Here also you can see another video of the hexagonal feeders. Though these are placed with sufficient distance between each other, but there is so much disturbance at the hexagonal feeders. And you can see the dominant goats are occupying more space. You see at this feeder, only 3 goats are there. They are all horned goats with high body condition score, but still they are having fighting. So in this hexagonal feeder, even chances of severe injury are more because the angle of fighting, they get more area or for hitting the animal in the rear quarter, which is usually dangerous for pregnant animals. So even we have done study and we found that at linear feeder, uh, chances of severe injury are less. And even after regrouping, we have carried out the study that even after regrouping, the stability is relatively better at linear feeder. And in hexagonal feeder, we reported many incidences of horn injury or say lameness after mixing and feeding at 2 different type of feeders. A lot of effort have been put for design of the ideal feeder for goats under the stall fed, and usually the partitions are found beneficial. So different designs of partitions have also been considered with you can see only head partition or sometimes the whole body partition, but we cannot afford such costly feeders in Indian condition to have say head partition or whole body partition between the goats at the feeder. So that is not possible at our farms. And even the Neve and co-workers, they have identified the design most suitable as the elevated platform where browsing can be ensured. So again, this is a costly feeder, but here at our university, we have tried to design one feeder which we called a linear partitioned bi-level feeder, where you can see that at lower level we can offer the concentrate, and at higher level we can offer the green for browsing option. And here even we can adjust the height of this browsing by the using some bolts. Here we can adjust the height of the browsing, and even this partition size can also be altered, though in general we say that 30 to 40 centimeter of feeding individual feeder space is required by each animal. 30 centimeter is usually sufficient, but for pregnant animal you may provide even 40 centimeter. Here you can see all the pregnant animals are eating, and moreover it is a portable design. So if you find that there is a lot of organic waste accumulation or say filthy conditions are there, you can replace the or you can shift the position of the feeder to avoid the so to have the better cleaning of the shed and floor. You can have that option. And depth of the feeder is usually 10 to 12 inches is good for the uh, waste to avoid wastage of the concentrate feed. And the height up to say 1.5 meter for browsing you can think about for bucks, and otherwise you can reduce as per the age category of the animal. As I told you, feeding is very important in stall fed. So if there is option of enclosures to go for grazing or browsing outside, you can provide that. Otherwise, you can simulate the extensive condition by tying. Here you can see Indian drake, that is very popular feed in northern India, particularly in Punjab, which is similar to neem leaves, which are usually tied at the height for browsing. And here you can see subabi leaves are offered for browsing in the hexagonal feeder. And even so many other non-conventional feed resources goats usually eat, and that is the reason why we say it's a poor man's cow, because it can consume wide variety of feed stuff, and there is a lot of immense scope of utilization of various type of feed resources. Here you can see in left corner in the southern Punjab, this kinnu fruit, just like orange. It's a very popular fruit. This belt is known for kinnu production. And here you can see over ripened kinnu waste, where goats are eating it. They are directly gulping and eating, drinking the juice. And I was surprised. So I asked the owner also. He told that there is no stomach upset or say stomach problems or digestion problem or acidosis or any bloat like condition. He says that regularly the goats are eating. Each goat at least consume 5 to 10 kinnus, and there is no issue. They themselves stop eating and then move to the next feeding option. And here you can see eucalyptus leaf offered for browsing. And in the right picture, you can see the hydroponic oat offered. But here goats, in case of goats, wastage will be more because they don't eat root portion. And in hydroponic, usually root portion is more than the other conventional fodder which we offer. So hydroponic is otherwise a good option, but you can think about more wastage, which can otherwise offer to large ruminants. You can offer it to large ruminant. And for offering these non-conventional feed resources, there is need of research, because we cannot directly add any non-conventional feed resource. We should gradually replace it to avoid the health complication. And if possible, proximate analysis should be made, and try to standardize the inclusion level. That is also important for the goats. Okay, so that is about the feeders. Now coming to the social structure of the animal. What should be the ideal social structure for housing of goats under the stall fed? That is the hot area of research worldwide. And here the significance of breed or the genetic lineage is very important. Though we say that generally people think that in the stall fed goat should get very good body weight because they are having less activity, but that is wrong, because goat is highly inquisitive animal and they tend to walk 6 to 7 kilometers every day. Okay, and those goats which were exposed to stall fed conditions long back, they perform well. Like you see boer goat, I'm showing here picture of 3 different breeds. You can see at the bottom, they are all day-old kid. Day-old kid at our farm in Ludhiana. They were all the heaviest kid which we got during my in charge period. I have taken those pictures. You can see the left kid was 5.5 kg at the time of birth, and this right kid was 5.75 kg, which was having high boer blood. And this is the boer beetle cross. So the boer blood line kids, they were much more active, much more agile, and even their dams, they were also very active. And even we had around 15 goats which were brought from USA in 1970. They were also having great adaptation traits in the stall fed. They were highly friendly, having almost zero flight distance, and many times they were irritating the trainees, those who were coming for training at our farm. They were so friendly, they were doing so much grooming, intergrooming with the humans. So they were, you can say that there is distinct difference of breed in adaptation regarding the stall fed. So that also we should consider. And we should not hesitate to say that our indigenous breed are not still adapted for stall fed. Even at our Ludhiana campus, we are rearing goats, beetle goats under zerograzing for about 15 years, but we still feel that they are not adapted well for stall fed. And some research suggests that ideal group size is 14 to 15 for adult goats to have more stability, and they should be of a homologous group or homogeneous group. This homogeneous group means age-wise, body weight-wise, body condition score-wise, or based on the presence of horn or hornless, or sometimes pregnancy status, physiological status. They should be of uniform nature to have less aggression, less injuries, or more stability in the group. So these requirements are very important for any group. So that's why I was saying that under stall fed, there should be maximum partitions or pens available within the shed. we usually recommend farmers to have, say, at least 5 partitions, minimum 5. But depending upon the size of the farm, if size is very large, if one want to have, say, 100 goat, 150 goat, 200 goats, so he should accordingly have more number of pens to make homogeneous groups of different category of goats based on their age, sex, body weight, body condition score, or pregnancy or milk yield. Even for milk yield, like say high yielders or low yielders, you can have separate grouping so as to have separate feeding option also. So those are important. And for bucks, usually we say they should be kept individually, though individual keeping is not easy, and you cannot, one farmer cannot afford that much space. So 2 to 3 group size is okay, but larger group of males or bucks should be avoided. And for kids, few studies are available, but as I told you, subgroups are important. In covered area, at least you should provide subgroups, and in paddock you can keep them together, there is no problem. And mixing or regrouping of unfamiliar animals should be avoided. That is because whenever there is regrouping, they will fight and then establish the hierarchy. So if, though you know that mixing is complete, it is unavoidable. It is sometimes we have to do mixing, particularly say when they become pregnant, you have to do mixing. Okay, so for mixing also, you should consider the early morning cool hours of the day, and you should offer some feed resources or some inputs which attract them, and they will have less aggressive interaction at the time of mixing. Or sometimes you can even tell the workers or attendant also to stay over there to avoid their severe fighting among the animals. And later on, it settles down within 1 week completely to have stable group. Here you can see one more study carried out at our farm, where heterogeneous group based on the body condition score. So here also we found that those goats which were having high body condition score, they spend more time feeding comfortably than the low body condition score. They never say those goats which were having 1.5 or 2 body condition score out of 5 score, they never had comfortable feeding option. Sometimes they even had residual feeding from ground also. So that we have noticed in our study. And here also you can see the results of one of the study where the 1.5 body condition score to 3.5 body condition score. So it was having direct correlation with reproductive performance. Those which were having high body condition score, their in anistus rate was almost nil with 3.5 BCS. And as BCS decreases, the anistus rate was increases. Okay, so you can see that you get better reproductive performance if body condition score or nutrient reserve is better. Okay, and it is also having the future implication. So you see this body condition score at the time of breeding is having direct implication on future milk yield or coming milk yield of the coming lactation. So here 3.5 BCS, we got average 2.2 liter milk yield. Then the goat with 2 BCS where 1.1 liter milk yield was the average milk yield. And even future reproductive performance also was affected by the body condition score at the time of breeding. So again, you see 3.5 BCS, we got heavier kids, and also with good litter size, twinning rate was also higher, and they had better birth weight. So we should try to attain better BCS at the time of breeding, maybe by flushing the animals with low BCS. Separately, we should house them, and we should flush them with additional feed at the time of breeding to get the better future production and reproduction performance of the animals. And then coming to the behavior aspect related to reproduction. So as I told you that bucks can be easily trained for semen donation because they frequently mount over each other, particularly to establish even their social hierarchy is also based on the mounting. So they train very well. Within 1 or 2 days, you can start collecting semen from the bucks. Okay, so that is one aspect. If you go for if you want to do AI in your farm, you can easily train the bucks. And as a part of reproductive behavior, they frequently urinate on their own mouth or on the front legs. That is known as self-inuration. So self-inurination is quite common in goats, and sometimes it leads to dermatitis or fungal infection in the skin. If you do not notice it, it may become complicated, and many bugs may become severely affected if you are not noticing it. Okay, so it's important to notice. They usually show flamen also, and as I told you, individual housing is sometimes recommended, but it is not as per the welfare of the animal. So you can suggest the small group housing, 2 to 3 bugs. And if you keep more bugs together, there will be more homosexuality, and some bugs may even become infertile, as I told you. I will show you one video here where bugs were mixed, regrouped, and you see 2 groups of bugs were regrouped. You can see immediately after regrouping, they started mounting over each other, and to establish the new hierarchy, new social hierarchy. Frequent mounting over each other is quite common. Homosexuality is quite common in the bugs. If you keep in large groups, that may lead to production of some shy breeder or sometimes some infertile bugs. Okay, so you can see how aggressively immediately after regrouping, they are mounting over each other. Now coming to the reproductive behavior of does, as I told you that they do not show much distinct signs of heat, except tail wagging and frequent urination. That is very common. Cervical discharge is not distinct in all the animals, but in some animals you may find the cervical discharge. That's why we usually go for buck parading for detection of heat in the females. And in the farms where males are kept away from the females, female may show any stress, and in that case you can have a presence of buck nearby. Say visual presence may even stimulate the heat, that is known as the buck effect. And even I have seen some farmers who are having very few females only at the farm. So there, if they cannot afford buck, then in that case they can rub some cloth at the base of the horns of the buck, because musk glands are present over there, and that cloth can be kept in the pen of the females, so that will induce the heat. If you do this practice for several days, at least 10 to 14 days, it will start inducing heat in the females. That has been noticed. And as I told you, breeding at early puberty stage should be avoided in the females, though it is still quite common, but it will affect the future performance, so it should be considered. Now coming to some other stockmanship features, like say ideal tag size for the goats. We found that larger tags are not beneficial. We should prefer the smaller tags, because earlier we used to use larger tag, and it will lead to attraction by the other goats, and they will chew these tags, and falling rate of tags and injuries were more frequent. But when we replaced with smaller tags, we got better results. And hygiene and biosecurity, though it is not well uh, you can say well utilized in the commercial farms, but or you can say it is in infancy stage in most of the Indian farms, but we have to be more cautious about biosecurity in stall fed, because we are keeping animals at relatively higher stocking density, so chances of diseases are also more common. So before being late, we should identify animals. Say here you can see the goat with severe mastitis, or case of caseous lymphadenitis or foot rot. So before reaching to such clinical stages, we should diagnose it at early and get the good results. And even the stockman's nature or mood also affect the goat's performance. It has been, a recent study has suggested that goats prefer happy faces rather than the angry faces, or say negative emotions of the human. So that is also important for the future farmers. And this particular review article published very recently in this year only by Seloji and co-workers, you must refer it, those who are interested to learn about the stockmanship skills with the goats, that various signals exchanged between the human or owner of the goat and goats, the various signals, say acoustic signal or tactile signal or say olfactory signal, gustatory signal, or visual signals between the human and goat. What is the meaning of these signals and how some are positively affecting the goat's performance, some are negatively affecting the goat's performance. These stockmanship skills, one must go and read this article to improve their stockmanship skill in the stall fed. So this is very recent article and very good article. You can I cannot narrate it. There are so many, uh, though these many are very common, just like you are calling a goat, say come on, or say for calling a kid, come on honey. Okay, so such signals have been used and the animal become accustomed to them, and based on the pitch of your sound they will respond positively or negatively. Okay, so you can refer this article for better clearance about the stockmanship skill. And this stockmanship skill, here the small things makes big difference. Here in this picture you can see farmers are standing with their bucks for display in one competition, and here you can see this particular owner is having poor handling skill, and that is leading to poor expression of its animal. He is unaware of the fact that this negatively affects the animal, or animal is under the stress because of this small poor handling skill. So that's why if we say that goats are mischievous or goats are naughty, it is because we fail to recognize them and we fail to provide them their optimal requirements. And the other aspect is actually that presence of goats improves the working efficiency of human. Very recent study has proved this, that continuous exposure of goats to working class of people, it improves the performance of working efficiency of people. So that's why we should have this, some of the areas related to behavior as a future study worldwide. It is being studied various personality type of goats, individual personality of the goats, and what are the dimension of human goat interaction, and what are the key indices for welfare of goats under the stall fed, and how we should rate the farms based on the welfare that is already being used in European goat farms. And accordingly, high welfare standard farms, they are getting premium price for goat milk. And in India particularly, the diversity, though we say it is our strength, but it puts a challenge, particularly the diversity of breed and climate diversity, that we have to extensively study these breeds in different climatic condition, happily to explore the stall fed goat promotion in scientific lines.